Tonight, devoured by flames, the deepening toll of the historic LA wildfires. Battling the inferno and combing through fields of ash.
It's crazy. There's absolutely nothing.
I don't even know where to start.
And what grounded a Canadian water bomber on the front lines.
Flying a drone in the fire traffic area is not only dangerous, but it's illegal.
Who's in and who's out?
I decided to put my country first, and I decided to do my job.
In the Liberal leadership contest, the new rules of the race. Also sentenced as a felon, but no jail time for Donald Trump.
It's been a political witch hunt.
Plus, a sick surge in viral illnesses, how to protect against what's circulating the most.
Total exhaustion and a fever.
And an unlikely shelter's open door policy.
They're really appreciative that we're out there. They have a place to stay warm.
Meet the couple pulling out all the stops to keep those in need warm.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. The race to be in the race for the Liberal leadership is heating up. Some top contenders set to declare their interest in the next few days, while others are declining. Former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney is expected to launch his bid to replace Prime Minister Justin Trudeau next week, while today Mélanie Joly bowed out. CTV's Judy Trin on the narrowing list.
After weeks of speculation, former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney is expected to announce he's in the race to be Prime Minister next week. Former BC Premier Christy Clark is days away from deciding, while House Leader Karina Gold is gauging her support among younger Liberals. Other cabinet ministers, though, are walking away.
Our chances were really, really high. But the reality is I'm foreign minister at a time that is crucial in our history, and Canadians are anxious.
Both Mélanie Joly and Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc say they need to focus on Donald Trump. His threats of tariffs and annexation have overshadowed opposition talking points.
The Liberal MPs want to elect another Justin Trudeau.
I think that Donald Trump will eat Pierre Poilievre's lunch, and that is terrible for Canadians. And so I'm looking for a strong leader that can defend Canada's interests.
New rules just established for the race are designed to separate the contenders from pretenders. Entering the race will cost candidates $350,000, more than 4 times what it was previously. New members have to register by January 27th, and only citizens and permanent residents can vote. Of the expected top candidates, polls show former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has the most name recognition, ahead of Carney and Clark. But Freeland's past ties may hurt her chances.
Even Chrystia Freeland, who quit and, some have argued kind of stabbed the Prime Minister in the back a little bit, is still seen as tied to that Trudeau agenda.
On March 9th, the Liberal Party will choose its new leader and the next Prime Minister. Then it will have to figure out its platform for an election that could be triggered this spring. Heather.
Judy, thank you. In California tonight, the fight against several massive wildfires remains precarious. The death toll rising to at least 11. And people who days ago were running for their lives are now returning to smoldering communities. The flames ravaging the Los Angeles area have left hundreds of kilometers of land as little more than ash and kindling. It's set to be the costliest wildfire in American history, with losses expected to exceed $50 billion U.S. Hollywood studios are pitching in to help with recovery efforts. Disney now committing $15 million for rebuilding. This as California Governor Gavin Newsom calls for an independent investigation into what led to hydrants being left without water just as firefighters desperately needed them to combat the flames. Adding to the turmoil tonight, fears of criminals targeting vulnerable communities. CTV's Andrew Johnson has the latest.
National Guard troops are now keeping watch over empty Los Angeles neighborhoods.
To keep people safe and to protect against anyone thinking of taking advantage of this tragedy.
A curfew is in effect from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. in case devastation and darkness attract looters.
You cannot be in these affected areas. If you are subject to arrest.
In the hardest hit Pacific Palisades, there's little left to steal.
Mars would be more habitable than this place right now, so it's crazy. There's absolutely nothing.
Nearby, the firefight goes on. The Santa Ana winds, blowing at hurricane force earlier in the week, have calmed down, helping some 10,000 firefighters on the ground and in the air.
We were very hopeful that we could turn a corner on this fire, and we did. We gained some containment.
A key piece of firefighting equipment, a Quebec-based Super Scooper aircraft, is grounded until at least Monday after it collided with a drone flying in restricted airspace. A close call, one of the pilots says, could have been deadly.
You can imagine the drone hitting the engine.
If you're thinking that it's fun to send a drone up, you will be arrested.
Canada has pledged more firefighting support from Ontario, Alberta, and British Columbia.
You're looking at providing support in the form of a management crew, about a dozen people, ground crews, about 20.
Crews are expected to be working on these fires for weeks. The region's recovery from this catastrophe will, of course, take much longer. Thousands of people no longer have homes or know what to do next, including Saskatchewan's Nadia Williamson.
We've just kind of been going from one place to another. It's scary. Nowhere feels safe.
She says rebuilding will be a long way off.
It can take up to like 3 to 4 years before, we move into a home.
For many here, the future can only be planned by the hour.
I don't know how we're going to come back from this. I don't even know where to start.
Andrew Johnson, CTV News.
And the major climate headline today, several weather agencies confirmed that 2024 was the hottest year on record.
Climate change, including increased heat, extended droughts, and a thirsty atmosphere, has been a key driver in the increased risk and extent of wildfires.
New records have been set in each of the last 10 years, but this is the first time temperatures climbed more than 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels, a key threshold set out in the 2015 Paris Climate Pact. Scientists point to the burning of fossil fuels as the key driver. Tonight, much of the southern U.S. is dealing with something not everyone is used to, a major winter storm bringing intense snow and ice. A severe winter storm brought travel to a grinding halt. Thousands of flights delayed or canceled in Atlanta. Engine failure right before takeoff forced hundreds of passengers to use slides to deplane. At least 6 states declaring a state of emergency. To an extraordinary courtroom scene today, President-elect Donald Trump appeared remotely as the judge gave him a sentence with no punishment in his hush money case. An unconditional discharge means he won't serve any jail time, but his place in history now cemented as the first convicted felon to be president. CTV's Kamal Karamali has more.
In a history-making moment, Donald Trump watching virtually from his Florida home as a New York judge handed down his sentence in the hush money case with an unconditional discharge, placing a judgment of guilt on his permanent record, but freeing him of any jail time, fine, or probation. During the hearing, Trump maintaining his innocence.
It's been a political witch hunt. It was done to damage my reputation so that I'd lose the election, and obviously that didn't work.
Manhattan Judge Juan Merchan could have sentenced Trump to up to 4 years in prison, but avoided complications by allowing him to return to the White House without punishment, with his inauguration 10 days from now. Judge Merchan saying this.
The considerable, indeed, extraordinary legal protections afforded by the office of the chief executive is a factor that overrides all others.
I think you were dealing with a very powerful, entitled person who's not afraid of any of them, and who knows that they may even have some reason to fear him.
Trump was charged almost 2 years ago, accused of fudging his business records to cover up a payment to porn actor Stormy Daniels back in 2016. She says she was paid to keep quiet about a sexual encounter she said she had with Trump a decade earlier. Last night, the U.S. Supreme Court narrowly voted to go ahead with today's sentencing after Trump's bid to delay it. With the sentencing behind him, Trump now free to return to the White House unencumbered.
If you're Donald Trump, you're pretty much getting off scot-free, with the exception of the fact that he'll forever be a felon.
Trump has said he'll file an appeal, but political analysts doubt he'll win since it was a jury trial, not a single judge, and one where he wasn't just convicted on one count, but on all 34. Heather.
All right, Kamal, thanks. Some promising news tonight for Canada's economy. The nation's unemployment rate dropped in December as 91,000 jobs were added. CTV's Garrett Berry crunched the numbers to find out which industries are leading the charge.
From classroom to classroom, it has been an excellent few years for grade 2 teacher Nicole Street.
It wasn't hard for me, no. Just straight out of university, I was looking for any experience, really.
Just 2 years after graduating, she's already found an almost dream job, working in a school close to home in St. John's.
It's a real big blessing to be able to teach kids and shape their little minds.
It's one of those small signs of a rebounding economy. Overall, the education sector is leading the charge, adding 17,000 jobs last month. That's continuing a strong streak. More than 70,000 people found employment in that sector in 2024.
Here, most everybody that wants to work and is willing to, they do.
Finally, a decent month.
Some economists say we're finally seeing the Canadian economy drag itself off of the floor. Today's data is the first time the employment rate has improved since January of 2023. And there's lots of other good signs in this report: gain in full-time employment and total hours worked. It all surprised economists who were expecting worse news today.
The broader, softer trend in the Canadian labor market persists, but anytime you can kind of slow that trend, it's a good sign that things, at least for now, aren't going off the rails.
In the provinces, Alberta posted the biggest gains, 35,000 jobs added there. Every province gained except for Manitoba, which lost jobs. There were gains in a variety of industries, which further impressed economists.
Self-employment shows confidence in consumer, it shows confidence in the overall market. So we saw a 24,000 increase in self-employed, which is great. That's pretty much the biggest increase we've seen since February.
Some economists expect that the positive overall report will mean the Bank of Canada might be less likely to tinker with interest rates. We'll hear from the bank again on January 29th. Heather.
Garrett, thank you. We turn now to a mother's heartbreaking and emotional appeal for the return of her 3-year-old son. The boy's father is accused of taking him halfway around the world in a case of suspected parental abduction. CTV's Beth McDonnell has the details.
And I started to realize this never was a vacation, and just have to deal with this every day is a torture. I have no words for explaining that.
Since July, 3-year-old Valentino has been far away from his mother. Camila Villas-Boas says only once since then has she been able to speak with her son on a video call.
He would come to the camera with one eye closed. Mom, can I come home? Please, can I come home? And it was breaking my heart because all he wanted was come home, and there's nothing I could do to bring him back.
Toronto police say her ex-husband, 48-year-old Kapil Sunak, went to Delhi, India with the boy and never returned, despite being ordered to come back August 8th. Sunak is now wanted for abduction by parent custody order.
Trust me, this is not about you. This is not about me. This is only about him. Only about him. We are adults. We can deal with our problems, but he's just growing up.
Police here tell us they're working with Interpol and collaborating with the RCMP and Indian officials to track down Sunak and the boy. If found, steps will be made to bring Valentino back and possibly arrest Sunak. Boaz says she has permission from authorities to go to India and bring Valentino back, but it's not safe for her to do so.
Once a week I come here on Sundays, and is to pray, to ask God to bring him back.
As time goes by, Boaz visits Valentino's room, holding on, trying to be strong. He'll be home soon.
Now, Mom is waiting for him. Mom is waiting for you. And your dinosaurs, they are all waiting for you too.
Beth McDonnell, CTV News, Toronto.
Coming up.
Canada, warship 341. Canada, warship 341.
The radio transmission from a Chinese frigate to a Canadian Navy vessel. Plus, offering warmth on wheels. All this week, CTV News has been bringing you stories from the Canadian warship HMCS Ottawa, a vessel sailing through a region filled with international tension, where China and other nations are jostling for control of key waters. CTV's Adrian Gobriel with more on the mission.
Daybreak on HMCS Ottawa begins with a call from a Chinese warship.
Canada, warship 341. Canada, warship 341. This is Chinese Navy warship.
The radio transmission is from a frigate known as the Young Chang. It's been shadowing HMCS Ottawa through the South China Sea for 2 days and counting.
This is Chinese Navy warship 511 calling on channel 16. The sea is in poor condition.
It's a request asking for HMCS Ottawa's coordinates to ensure the safety of both vessels. A seemingly friendly gesture, one that this Canadian Navy crew tell us they've never received before. The belief on the ship is that the Chinese Navy is aware that CTV News is on board, documenting this deployment. The looming presence of China's warships is expected. On this day, the Royal Canadian Navy is traveling just west of the Spratly Islands, where China has built fully functioning airstrips and military bases. China, Taiwan, and Vietnam each claim all of these islands as their own. HMCS Ottawa is in the South China Sea taking part in Operation Horizon to promote safety and rules-based maritime order. Some fear China's militarization of these waters could give Beijing strategic leverage across the region.
What China is trying to do is rewrite the rule book, which then adversely affects, the sovereignty of Taiwan, the sovereignty of the Philippines.
Military experts also believe similarities can be found in Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, which led to the invasion of Ukraine, and China's claims of ownership over the South China Sea.
China is watching to see how much they can get away with by using Russia as the proxy. The Chinese have this thing, they will wait for the time and opportunity, but their aspirations have not changed. We have to take them seriously.
It's important to note that this is also a vital shipping route, and underneath the sea floor, there's said to be 11 billion barrels of untapped oil. Heather.
CTV's Adrian Gobriel on board HMCS Ottawa. Thank you. Still ahead, do you feel like everyone's getting sick? There's a good reason for that. The illnesses seeing a shocking rise after the break. Chances are you or someone you know is sick right now, and Health Canada has new data to back that up. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth has been tracking the illnesses on the rise.
Walk-in clinics and emergency rooms are busy treating sick patients across the country.
Not sure if it was walking pneumonia or bacterial.
Whatever it was, it made for a tough few days shivering in bed.
Total exhaustion and a fever.
Not one to take chances, this senior booked her RSV vaccine.
Well, I've already had the flu shot, and the RSV is just a second precautionary measure.
According to Health Canada, last week there were close to 4,500 reported cases of influenza and almost 4,000 RSV cases in Canada. In the past 6 months, Dr. Kirsten Weerdenberg has diagnosed more mycoplasma pneumonia or walking pneumonia cases than she has in her 15-year career. There's been a recent dip in walking pneumonia, but an uptick with other viruses.
With influenza, with RSV, and a little bit less so with that mycoplasma pneumonia. Now, there is typical pneumonias or other community-acquired pneumonias caused by other bacteria.
Doctors urge people to get their flu, RSV, and COVID shots. We are well into the winter season. There is sickness all around us, but it's not too late to get that extra layer of protection.
You still should get it because, again, we don't always know which strain of influenza they have, or if they even have that or another type of virus.
If you're not feeling well enough to go to work or engage in activities, doctors advise people to stay home and rest for at least 3 days. It could help stop the spread of viruses during a winter season that has seen a lot of sickness. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Still ahead, creative cold weather relief. A warm gesture helping communities escape the chill. Canadian winters are dangerous for the most vulnerable, especially those with nowhere else to go. A Saskatoon couple is doing what they can to help. CTV's Alison Bamford on their warm act of kindness.
From the outside, it looks like an old school bus behind some red paint. But step inside and it's so much more. Ralph Nicotine and his wife converted the bus into a temporary warm-up shelter 3 winters ago after he heard of a man freezing to death outside this Saskatoon church.
Yeah, it sparked my attention to do it throughout the night, just to be a beacon of light.
3 times a week from November to March, the bus is that beacon. It seats 10 at a time, and on busy nights, they can fill it 10 times over. With the help of volunteers and donations, they offer warm food, drinks, and extra clothes for anyone who needs.
We had a 61-year-old man come on the bus not too long ago, and he just had a spring jacket on, some jeans, and some shoes with some holes on it. He was cold.
The demand is there, but a shortage of volunteer drivers has Nicotine scaling back operations at a time when homelessness in the city is rising.
It's getting worse since 3 years ago. A lot of new faces, a lot of young people now.
A recent point-in-time count shows Saskatoon's homeless population tripled from 2022 to 2024. Regina, Edmonton, and Ottawa also recorded increases last fall.
The last count showed over 3,000 people. We don't know that that number is completely accurate. We tend to believe that it's higher than that.
Ottawa's Salvation Army estimates about 300 people sleep outside each week. On Monday, a homeless man was reportedly found frozen to death downtown when wind chill values dipped below -24. A tragic outcome that Nicotine hopes to prevent in his own city.
They're really appreciative that we're out there. They have a place to stay warm.
With plans to expand the service in the future, Nicotine hopes the doors won't close on anyone in need. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
A warm act of kindness. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. I'm Heather Butts. Good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.